Hello there. It is Wednesday, August 22nd, 2018, and welcome back, my friends, to the A-Side Live Chat podcast, or the S&M podcast if you're a freak like that. Thank you so much for joining us this fine morning. My name is Shaun Al-Shatti, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, my good friend, the workhorse himself. He survived a debaucherous weekend in Nashville and made it back alive to tell the tale. Mr. Marc Raimondi, how are things, Marc? Report back to us. How was the bachelor party?
Well, hold on a second here. Just wait 1 minute. Tell the tale? Tell the tale? Really? You know, Shaun, that would violate every code of bachelor parties to actually talk about what happened on said bachelor parties. I will say a few things. I was on vacation, of course, the last few days. I was in Nashville. I would love to say that I am rested, that I'm refreshed. I'm none of those things. I'm probably still hungover. I'm probably still dehydrated. I'm probably still exhausted. My voice is a bit scratchy, so I apologize for that from the yelling over the country music and, of course, the copious amounts of alcohol consumption. But it was a good time. I'm here. I'm ready to talk about some cage fighting. So let's get right into it. I will say one thing about Nashville. Had a good time. I really enjoyed the city. Last week, if you recall, sir, you had some ill words of Nashville. You questioned
How dare you?
You questioned the ability for Nashville to party. Let me tell you something, my friend. Nashville can freaking party. It was a crazy time in Nashville, man. I don't think you understand. That is I think it has taken its game to the next level in recent years, and it was a 24/7 party.
Okay, so I am glad you brought that up because I have to point out, I've had at least like a couple dozen people hit me up through various channels since last week getting mad at me. Like I was disparaging Nashville. So I don't appreciate you piling onto that, telling me about how fun Nashville is and everybody getting all riled up. Y'all, I wasn't disparaging Nashville. I was simply surprised that a bunch of dudes from California and New York were going to Nashville for a bachelor party. That's all. I'm sure Nashville's great. I'm a Georgia boy myself. I was born in Atlanta. We're all Southerners here. Like, calm down, Nashvillians. Nashvillites? Nashvillians? I don't know. Let's go Nashvillians. Calm down, everyone. Everything's great. I'm sure it was great. Relax. You have to give me something. Top 2 safe for work things you did at this bachelor party.
Well, I tweeted one thing on Thursday night when I first got there. We were at a bar downtown on Broadway, and we were on the 3rd floor, the rooftop of the bar. And on the 2nd floor was Extreme Midget Wrestling.
Yo.
Believe me, I know the first question. Why did you not go to Extreme Midget Wrestling? It was sold out. We couldn't get in. There were like 10, 11 guys. We could not all get into the Extreme Midget Wrestling. Believe me, I tried, but that was out the window. But Nashville, first of all, let me tell you this. Nashville is like the capital, the destination for bachelorette parties. It is almost all bachelorette parties, and it's actually really funny because it's basically all ladies, all girls from New York, Boston, Chicago, Toronto, all women from the North who are basically coming to Nashville. They're doing their country cosplay. They got on their jean shorts and their cowboy boots and their plaid shirts and their cowboy hats or trucker hats. They're being country for a weekend at this bachelorette party. So it's a good time.
I am so disappointed that you didn't end up at that Extreme Midget Wrestling.
Not without trying, I'm telling you. Actually, for full disclosure, I was actually one of the performers at the Extreme Midget Wrestling.
Oh, the truth. I knew it.
By the way, Shaun, what's up with your shirt?
Dude,
change your shirt.
Let's address this right off the top.
Come on, man.
We did. Oh, God. We look so silly. We didn't realize that this was going to happen until literally like 9:57 our time, like 3 minutes before this was about to start, because we were running a little late. So it was like, oh, okay, I don't have time to iron something else. You're not even at your house. You're in some weird pod. Like, we're just going to be matchy today, buddy.
You got to change your shirt, man. You're home. You have no excuse. Look, I have a great excuse. All my clothes are in the laundry. I just got back from Nashville. I haven't done laundry yet.
Look, I have a good excuse.
The MMA fighting shirt's bad. It's great.
Look, I could go shirtless for this. We could do that.
Let's try to listen. It's not the S&M podcast. It is the A-Side podcast. If it was the S&M podcast, maybe you can go shirtless.
See,
But
I have a good excuse too. You just came back from vacation. I'm getting ready to go on mine. I'm counting down the days until mine. Like it's only a few days away. You were gone last weekend. This weekend I'm gonna be out, so I'm letting my laundry pile up at this point, so you can kind of do one big load. I'm excited for mine. I'm gonna miss UFC Lincoln. Unfortunately, I won't be able to cover that live. I'm a little bummed about that. But I'll certainly catch up before next week's show. But
where are you going on vacation?
This is how much of a nerd I am. Me and a bunch of my old friends are going to our annual fantasy football draft trip. Like this league has been going for 10 years. It's all of my old crew from way back in high school. I'm actually the commissioner. And every year we get together for like a weekend without the kids and the wives and the responsibilities and just relax and be kids again. 12 team, half point PPR. You're looking at the 3-time champ, the defending champion here. Should be a good time.
You're a nerd. I just got back from Nashville partying, and you're gonna go spend a weekend with the boys doing fantasy football.
Yo,
that's a win for me, my friend. That's a win for me.
I don't know. We rented a beach house this year in Oceanside, California. So if you see me out there in Oceanside, holla at your boy.
Wait, but you're gonna be in California? You didn't even tell me.
It's like
I thought we were friends.
It's a beach house in Oceanside. I think that's like several hours away from you.
It's like 90 minutes away. Come on.
Hey, will you play a little fantasy football?
I'm not playing any fantasy football. I'll go to the beach.
What? Why are you so un-American?
Listen, I played my share of fantasy football, but I just can't. I don't got the time for this. I got to talk to you every Wednesday. I can't be messing around with this. This was the first year I didn't play fantasy baseball in like over a decade, I think. I just couldn't. There's no time.
You got to talk to me. You get to talk to me. It is a privilege. How dare you, sir? Well, wait, that's enough. That's enough chatter. There's plenty to talk about today, so we'll stop wasting time. Slow times are behind us, and the fight schedule is just about to pick up. I mean, you got the UFC returning this weekend with UFC Lincoln, and man, this is a sneaky good card, Marc. Like you don't need me to tell you the main event is a banger. Justin Gaethje versus James Vick. That's a big one for both guys. James Vick has long called for his second shot at the top 10, and he's getting it here. Same with Justin Gaethje. I mean, he's riding a 0-2 slump, but both of those were razor-thin coin flips against the very best at lightweight, man. So we very well could be 3-0 right now in the UFC. So, again, there's a lot on the line for both guys. Then we're hitting the meat of the calendar, man. For slow times are behind us. We got UFC 228, 29, and 30 back-to-back-to-back, plus the meatier part of the Bellator schedule coming up, all these tournaments, PFL playoffs right around the corner. But, hey, guys, this is your show. So we'll talk about whatever you want us to talk about. You can ask us a question on the MMA Fighting page below, right here. Any question that gets 3 recommendations will turn green, and those will get priority. Or you can ask us a question on Twitter using the hashtags #TheAside or Chat Rappers. And, of course, a replay of this podcast is going to be up immediately following the show on YouTube and an audio-only version on SoundCloud, as we mentioned last week, iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher. Those are all being worked on, and we've been told everything should be good to go in a couple of weeks. So looking forward to that. But without further ado, let's not waste any more time. Let's dive into some questions, Marc.
We've wasted plenty of time already. So let's get into it.
Well, hey, we're going to waste some more time because apparently the first question's coming from Overeem's Chin. Great name. Marc, how drunk did you get at that bachelor party? Any crazy stories?
Look, I've said all I will say about this bachelor party. Again, what you guys know better. You can't be talking about bachelor parties in a public forum. That is against the bro code. Come on now. So that is all I will say. I had a good time. I'm back now. I'm in one piece barely. And that's it. That's it. I recommend Nashville for your partying needs. Noted.
All right, well, then let's move on to Dizzy Dorf. And he wants to know about Jon Jones. Jon Jones' return. Yes, it has been speculated that Jon Jones could be returning sooner rather than later. How likely do you see him fighting again this year, and against whom? Also, why does it take USADA so long to decide his punishment? That is a great question, Dizzy Dorf. And loyal listener, Dizzy Dorf. I think we're getting questions from you every week. We appreciate it. So, Marc, Jon Jones' return. What do you make of all this?
Yeah, I'm glad that we're addressing this off the top, because I think I get a Jon Jones question every single day of my life, and it's been that way for about a year. It's been just about a year since we all found out that Jones had popped for a steroid in relation to his fight with Cormier at UFC 214. And it is taking a very long time, and I don't know why. I really don't know the full reason. I can speculate as to why. I think that this is Jon Jones. He's probably the greatest fighter of all time. And I think that USADA does not want to strip Jon Jones of the rest of his prime years. I don't think there's any way that Jon Jones is getting a 4-year suspension. I know that he's facing a 4-year suspension technically because he is a repeat offender. He's facing that, but I cannot imagine him getting a 4-year suspension. How long will he get? That I cannot say for certain. I can almost say for certain it won't be the full 4 years. I don't know. I know that it seems as if he's going to be coming back soon based off on social media. There has been speculation that he could headline UFC 230 at Madison Square Garden. That main event is still wide open. It seems like the UFC is waiting for something. Could that be Jon Jones? Maybe. It's possible. That would take Jon Jones getting only a year suspension from USADA, because then he would be able to be back pretty much right now. As we speak, he would be eligible. Time served. But I don't know if it is realistic to say that, because his first suspension was 1 year, and I believe by rule of the UFC's anti-doping policy, you have to at least get a greater suspension the second time around. Now, again, it is all, I mean, it is language that can be kind of be open to their interpretation a little bit, but I do think only 1 year would be surprising. I would never rule it out. You never know. It could happen. I would say that it would probably be unlikely. I would say that if I had to guess, and this is all speculation, I would say 18 months, which would put him back sometime in the beginning of next year, January, or 2 years, which would put him back sometime next summer, late July, August, sometime in that time frame. That is my guess. I could be completely wrong about that, but just knowing what we know about USADA and how they operate over the last few years, being with the UFC, it's been 3 years actually now that they've been the UFC's anti-doping partner. I would put it most likely 2 years or 18 months, but again, no idea. Things could change. Maybe it's possible we don't know the whole story. Also, interestingly enough, Jon Jones was tested for the first time by USADA last week, the first time since 2018.
I want to bring that
in
up.
2018, I should say.
I want to bring that up in particular, but one thing that you said that's interesting to me and caught my ear is USADA doesn't want to take away the prime years of Jon Jones' career. Should that be a consideration? I mean, I feel like I understand this is one of our legends of the sport. This is one of the greatest to do it. But why is that even a consideration? If this is undercard Bob fighting on the Fight Pass prelims, and he fails a second drug test and he is supposed to get a 4-year suspension, he's probably getting a 4-year suspension, right? Like, why is that even a consideration that they wouldn't want to take away his prime years?
That's a good point. I mean, I don't disagree with that at all. And I think when I say that they don't want to take away his prime years, that was my answer to why they're taking so long. I think they're trying to be very careful to do the right thing here. I think that, first of all, I think 4 years is too long anyway. That's just my opinion. 2 years, even for 4 years, even for a two-time offender like Jones, is too long. I think that 4 years in MMA, 4 years is like an eternity. I mean, things change so much, even from year to year in this sport. I feel like 4 years in MMA is equivalent to like 10 years in like baseball. It just seems like, I mean, especially because the length of fighters' careers are so short. I'm not a fan of 4 years anyway, but I think the reason why it's taking so long is because they just want to be very careful. They want to make sure all their I's are dotted, all their T's are crossed. They don't want to send away the best fighter of all time for 4 years based on a mistake. And they've gotten some criticism, USADA, as we know. They've gotten criticism over the tainted supplement stuff, and people don't like how they announce a potential violation before the whole adjudication process is over. And I understand all those concerns. So I just think they're being very, very careful with it. I do think that it's going to happen very soon. And I do think when Jones was tested, that was kind of an indication that, okay, this case may be coming to a close soon. Also, another thing that I get asked about a lot is a hearing or an arbitration. He's not going to arbitration. He went to arbitration last time for the first drug test failure, and he ended up getting a 1-year suspension from the arbitrators. So they're not going in that direction again. They're trying to work out something with USADA. So it'll be USADA's choice alone. But like anything else, there's a deal. You know, there's when you see these releases put out, it's always X fighter accepted the sanction. So they accept the sanction. Usually there's cooperation. There may be a little bit of a reduced sentence there. So I believe that's what's coming, but I don't know for sure when. I think it's going to be soon. I don't know for sure how long, but I think it'll be 18 months or 2 years. Could be a year. But I don't think it'll be any more than 2 years.
As you're talking, I have a little screen on my screen where I can see both me and you on the Google Hangouts thing, and I just can't get over how ridiculous this looks that we're wearing the exact same shirt. Like, it looks so effing silly.
Focus.
I'm sorry.
On Al-Shatti. We're talking about serious business here.
Serious business. I will say my piece on this. I mean, I feel like this has gotten quite ridiculous at this point, if I'm being honest, man. Like, Jon Jones's hearing with CSAC, California State Athletic Commission, was in February. He was, of course, fined, and his license was basically revoked by CSAC. And at that point, we're told that this case has effectively been put in USADA's hands. And on that note, I mean, it was like you mentioned the drug tests and how that may be an indication that something's moving forward. That doesn't make any sense to me. I think it was about 2 or 3 weeks ago that I hit you up because, I mean, you're the resident USADA expert. You're owning this corner in the sport. You're all about it. I hit you up wondering what was going on with Jones's testing because I was looking through the USADA database and I was stunned to see that he hadn't been tested once in 2018, not once. Freaking Daniel Cormier has been tested over 10 times. And Jon Jones hadn't been tested once, or at least he wasn't on the database if he had been tested. And that right around that same time, a lot of people noticed this same thing. And coincidentally enough, like you say, now he has been tested once since that. Once everyone started complaining about that. Once. Again, I repeat, Daniel Cormier has been tested 11 times. You're telling me the guy who has multiple testing failures was able to go. I mean, maybe he wasn't. Maybe he wasn't, and there was more going on behind the scenes that we don't know. But you're telling me, at least from the optics level, that the guy who failed multiple drug tests over the past several years was able to go 8 months without a single random drug test. That does not make sense to me. And I mean, you reached out to USADA for clarification on this, and it didn't seem like they really said much back to you, which leads me to my next point, which is, I mean, maybe there's more to this, but either way, I thought the whole point of this system was transparency. Like, wasn't that one of the big factors touted at the start of all of this? The transparency. We're going to be able to see everything that's happening. Where is that transparency? You're telling me again that this high-profile guy who has now failed multiple tests over the last several years can go the first 8 months of the year without at least one test showing up on his database. That is ridiculous. That makes no sense to me.
One last thing, and I don't disagree with you at all. One last thing about that, and I'm glad you brought up the California State Athletic Commission, because Jones' license was revoked by CSAC back in February with the condition that once his USADA suspension is all dealt with, he could come back before the commission and apply to have his license reinstated. So that process will have to happen after the USADA suspension is up. So let's say he gets a 1-year suspension from USADA, retroactive, and the suspension is pretty much over right now. He's good to go as far as USADA goes. He will still have to go before the California State Athletic Commission again to appeal to the commission to get his license back before fighting. And not just in California, in New York, in Nevada, they will honor the revocation of the license. Jon Jones can't fight right now. He has no license. He can't fight anywhere in the United States or Canada that has a commission. So before this whole process is over, he still has to go back before CSAC one more time and try to get his license back. And look, I'm sure that will happen. I have a hard time believing that the commission will say, no, Jon Jones, you can't fight again, or you have to wait another, a year or whatever. That'll probably happen, but he still has to go through the process, and we don't know how long that will take. I think there's a CSAC meeting in September. So let's say Jon Jones is able to get cleared by then. He can go before the commission in September, I believe, is the next meeting, and appeal to them. But until that happens, he can't fight, no matter where the fight is.
I mean, all that being said, I do want to point out something. Have you seen the recent pictures of the guy? Like, I don't know whether maybe it was Brandon Gibson or Mike Winklejohn, one of the coaches at Jackson Wink. Maybe it was John himself. I'm not sure. But I saw a picture a few days ago of it was like a post-training session picture. And dude, the guy is yoked, man. Like he's out here looking like a heavyweight right now. It just makes me miss him so much more, man. Like there's so much that we should be seeing from him, and it's just disappointing.
I like how when you see a man's physique, you miss him even more.
Dude, I'm telling you, you should find this picture of Jon Jones. He looks massive. Like he looks like a legitimate big heavyweight. So all that aside,
it's yes, absolutely. He looks great.
Yeah. I mean, so all that aside, I mean, returning to the original question, I agree with you. I think either one of two options is going to happen. I think either something happens very, very soon, and somehow we get Jon for UFC 230 in Madison Square Garden, or we're not getting him until next year minimum. Those are, I think, the two options. I don't feel like there's any in between on that.
And then, of course, I mean, who does he face? Daniel Cormier. Would it be a 205 fight? Would Daniel Cormier really take a fight against Jon Jones before his big payday against Brock Lesnar coming up? I don't know. I honestly don't know the answer to that. That would be the other question. Who does he fight?
Yeah. Well, hey, we'll cross that bridge when it comes to it. You want to throw out the next one?
Yeah, we have our true and false for the week.
All right.
Coming up from Abdel Riff. It's a next contender edition of True and False.
Oh shit. Okay.
You ready for these?
Yeah, this is a long one too, so let's try to rapid fire it.
Let's try to make it fast. I'm getting a call.
Is this your niece?
Don't they know that I'm on the air?
Is this your niece?
No, it's not. It's someone from St. Louis, Missouri. All right. True or false?
So unprofessional. So unprofessional.
What can I say? Flyweight next title fight will be TJ moves down and fights Cejudo to try to become double champ. True or false?
False. I mean, both those divisions have things going on. I think DJ has to rematch Cejudo, and you have to give TJ either Cruz, Assunção, or Moraes. One of those three.
False. I don't think that's going to happen. It's just too soon. It's too soon. True or false? UFC shocks the hardcore fan base and gives Assunção the title shot and makes Cruz versus Moraes on the same card.
If I had my druthers, that's what I'd be doing. But I feel like that's also false. I think he's going to end up fighting Dominic Cruz.
False. I think Cruz is kind of the people's choice. Moraes probably has the best case to be made as far as deserving, whatever that means.
What? That's just, come on, man. Like he just lost
you're gonna go to bat for Assunção?
He literally just lost to Assunção. If you're going deserving, Assunção has the best case.
I mean, Moraes just finished two very tough guys in a row.
Two guys.
Nasty knockouts. That kind of stuff gets you title shots.
We agree to disagree.
Just saying. Holloway Ortega finally happens in 2018. True or false?
Oh, man. I'm going to say true, and I think it's going to be sometime around December.
I will say true.
Yeah,
I will say true.
I would like it to be false, though. I would like Max to get more time than that, but I think it'll be sometime around December.
I'll say true, and I can't really. It's hard to say how I feel about Holloway coming back because we just don't know medically where he's at. I mean, based on what we do know, which was the scary stuff that happened in July, I would say I'd like to see him take some more time off. But who knows? I mean, if he's medically cleared and he's good to go, he's good to go. So I would say true, and maybe Toronto, maybe the pay-per-view in Toronto in December. True or false? Winner of Diaz-Poirier gets the next shot above Tony Ferguson. That's
interesting. I think Diaz's fate ultimately is to fight Conor a third time next, regardless. When that fight was announced, I posted a tweet where it was basically, can't remember it exactly, but it was like all the different scenarios that could happen with those two fights, Conor Khabib and Nate Dustin, and all but one of the scenarios in my mind leads to McGregor versus Diaz 3. So if to answer the question, I can't say completely. I think if Conor wins and Diaz wins, then definitely Diaz will get the next shot above Tony Ferguson. But if Conor loses and Diaz wins or loses or whatever, I think regardless, Diaz is probably getting that shot against Conor McGregor.
I would say probably true. I think, like you said, if Diaz wins, he'll probably fight either Khabib or McGregor. That would be my guess. If Poirier wins, I think it probably depends on how he does it. And that's also not taking into account, was Tony Ferguson going to fight on one of those cards? Is he gonna fight at UFC 229 or UFC 230? And that will also decide it. So I'll say true tentatively, but Tony Ferguson still has a chance to put himself over Poirier. He's probably not going to put himself over Diaz if Diaz wins. True or false? Colby gets the next shot and fights the winner of Woodley Till and doesn't have to fight, for example, an Usman to reclaim his shot.
I think that's true. I think he's probably the next up in line. I feel like the UFC probably feels like they owe him to some degree.
I would say true, especially if Woodley wins. If Woodley wins, Woodley Covington is the fight to make. It's been the fight to make. They probably should have waited for it, but I understand they have a spot to fill on UFC 228. And of course, Till is great, but we've already covered the whole my feeling on the whole weight miss thing.
Yes, we have in detail.
True or false? Rockhold Weidman 2 is a title eliminator bout.
I mean, title eliminator generally means if you win that, you're getting the next shot. So I say false. I think those guys are both a little bit away. Maybe not Weidman as much. I guess Rockhold's a little bit farther away. If Weidman wins, maybe it's a title eliminator. But in general, I say false.
I would say probably false, and I still don't know why Luke Rockhold is going back to middleweight after talking so much about 205. Seems like that division is ripe for him right now. He's complained about cutting weight for a long time. With Cormier retiring in March, it seems like Rockhold can slide right into 205 and be a contender there right away. I'm not really sure why he's moving down, but probably false. But yeah, if like you said, if Weidman wins and does so impressively, he would probably be the guy with the best resume to get that next middleweight shot. Of course, the middleweight title fight is not going to happen until early next year. So again, a lot can happen. Timing is everything. True or false? A light heavyweight title fight happens in 2018.
I think we get asked this every week. I'm going to say what I keep saying, man. I'm going to say false because I want to project that into reality. I don't want Daniel Cormier to go down to 205. I think at this point, he just doesn't even need to do that to his body, especially after making heavyweight and preparing for heavyweight. I say false.
I would say false also. And I totally agree with you. I don't see, it just doesn't make sense for Cormier to drop down and cut all that weight again and then try to turn around and fight Brock Lesnar sometime in early 2019. The Lesnar fight is the one. That's his retirement fight. I think he should just save himself for that fight. But DC may not be that kind of guy. He may want to defend the 205 title. He said he would. So we'll see what happens. But gun to my head, I would say false. Yeah. True or false? Stipe gets a title shot after DC Brock, despite not having fought since he lost his belt.
I think true, man. I think he's going to probably sit out for a little bit. And after DC Brock happens, I would imagine that title is going to be vacated unless Brock wins. I just don't see that happening.
Maybe either way.
Yeah, maybe either way, right? Like, who knows if Brock will actually stay. I think regardless, that title gets vacated. And then Stipe's the next man up. It's going to be Stipe and maybe like a Curtis Blades or it's the winner of Lewis Volkov, something like that.
Yeah, I can't forget Curtis Blades. I mean, he's a monster, man. He's really, really good. Cannot sleep on that guy.
Dude, Curtis Blades and Ngannou too. That's going to be good.
That's going to be fun.
I'm really looking forward to that.
I will not make any wagers about that fight, though.
We'll see about that.
True or false? Andrade Carolina winner fights Rose.
I say true. I think there's a storyline for both.
I would agree. I think true. Caitlin, true or false? Caitlin Chikagian fights the champ Shevchenko next. Winner of Montano Shevchenko. Very cute, Abdel Riff.
A little sarcasm fun. I like that. Caitlin Chikagian has very quietly put together a really nice resume at 125. I think she's probably one fight away, but if she wins her next fight, I think that's very likely.
It could happen. Sijara Eubanks also could get that shot, which is very interesting because they train at the same camp. They train with Mark Henry in New Jersey, Eubanks and Chikagian, and both of them can make a very good case for getting that shot. But you know who else could make a case for getting that flyweight title shot? Joanna Jędrzejczyk. I would like to see that. If Shevchenko wins, the fight to make at 125 for the women is Shevchenko Jędrzejczyk, old Muay Thai rivals meeting in the octagon. That is the fight to make.
I'm not opposed to that at all. Also, I want to point out, Caitlin Chikagian already has a win over Eubanks from way back in 2015.
Right, CFFC, sure.
Yeah.
True or false, UFC would ever book Jermaine Durandamy in a bantamweight title fight?
I mean, I guess true, right? Like if she works her way up and deserves it, what are you gonna not book her? Like at some point, if she earns it and she's the obvious person, You got to book that fight.
I would say, I'm not really sure what he's saying or what the true or false is here, but I would say they probably would not book her in a bantamweight title fight. And I say that solely because I don't think that she will reach that level to get a bantamweight title shot. I think that there will always be someone that they would rather slide into that role other than Durand to me. So I would say that would not happen. Last one, true or false? Cyborg fights another 145er or 135. This is worded creatively. Cyborg fights another 145er or 135 Invicta champion before fighting Nunes.
I say false. I think they're just going to hold her for Nunes at this point in December.
Yeah, false. I think Cyborg's next fight will be in December against Nunes.
All right, that wraps up that one. Next, I love the true or false, but let's limit it to not like 20 questions next time, guys. Keep them going. I love them, but let's shorten them a little bit. All right, moving on to the next question.
Shaun putting his foot down here.
I'm just saying.
It's their show, Shaun. Come on, man.
That's fair. So next up
comes what you want to do. do you, viewers?
Next up comes from the Empire 91, who asks about some MMA fighting news. No Beat MMA Hour. Hey guys, I understand that Luke is a big part of both shows, but why not have Danny do the MMA Hour and have Chuck lead the MMA Beat while Luke is on vacation? He's just wondering. And I mean, I guess there's the obvious answer here is just, there's a lot more that goes on behind the scenes when it comes to doing a show like this or doing a show like the Hour or the Beat. That it's not really a situation where it's really easy to slot somebody in real quick for a position that maybe they haven't done before. I don't know if you have anything more to add to that.
Yeah, I mean, also Danny is the producer of the MMA Hour, so who's going to produce the show if he's in that seat? I just think that there's a lot of moving parts. We're not really in a position to shuffle the deck again. We've already shuffled the deck once in the last few months, as we all know. It's been a transition, and I think that we're kicking ass right now. But I think that trying to shuffle the deck again, and once people are starting to get used to how we're doing things now, and then trying to shuffle the deck for 2 weeks, I just think it's a step backwards. So we'll just go dark for a bit and come back as strong as ever.
Yeah, and it is unfortunate, but Luke's vacation was planned well before all of this happened. So I mean, at some point, the guy's working his ass off. You gotta let him go away for a couple of weeks. He'll come back recharged. It'll be good.
Everyone is entitled to a vacation, except if it's to a fantasy football vacation in Oceanside, California. That's just weird. Who would do that?
You're so jealous, man. Don't hate. I'm gonna be on the beach.
Going to be researching your fantasy football team.
3-time champ.
All right. Next question coming from Protein215 on the MMAfighting.com comment section. PPV question. Is this notion by the UFC that all pay-per-views must be headlined by a title fight too restrictive? This self-imposed burden has been a huge monkey wrench. It very much limits late replacement options and has also led to many of these nonsense interim belts. Is this too restrictive? Is it necessary? Surely they can put together plenty of incredible non-title main events that also have very significant stakes. I've seen no feedback from fans that a PPV main event must have a title on the line. Thoughts on that, Shaun?
Yeah, he also added a nice little note there at the end that you didn't say, but that's okay.
I mean, I don't want to pump us up too much here. I want to make sure you don't get a big head.
I have a comeback for that, but I will hold it back.
Let's go. Come on. Nothing on the table today. Let's go, baby.
There's nothing to do with your head size, I promise. So
are you saying I have a big head?
It's larger. It's above average.
Are you saying that my head is too big for my body? Is that what you're saying?
I would never, ever dream of saying anything like that, my friend.
What are your thoughts on my friend's pay-per-view question?
So that's a good question. And I mean,
Protein215.
Which is a good name, by the way. That's a good question. And that's something that I was kind of talking about a couple of weeks ago when the whole Nate Diaz topic came up. And I agree with what Protein's saying here, man. Like in general, this is a relatively new phenomenon where this is almost expected. Like a title fight has to be above anything else. Like if you look back even to 2016, obviously McGregor Diaz, both those fights weren't title fights. They headlined, and that's obviously an exceptional circumstance. But go back farther. I mean, Silva Diaz in 2015, that wasn't a title fight. In 2013, there were back-to-back pay-per-views, UFC 160 and 161, that weren't title fights, that were headlined by non-title fights. Kane versus Bigfoot, and then Evans versus Hendo, back-to-back. Go even farther back than that. 2011. There were 3 pay-per-views in a row, 137, 138, and 139, that were not headlined by title fights. Chris Lieben versus Munoz was one, then it was Penn versus Diaz, and then it was Shogun versus Hendo, and we obviously know how Shogun Hendo went. That's a pay-per-view headline-worthy fight. And just even in that year alone, 2017, I was looking this up. There were 17 total pay-per-views in 2011. 8 of them were headlined by non-title fights. That's nearly half. This is all relatively new, and it has also forced the UFC to kind of create this situation now that we're in, where it's all these interim title fights, and you got things like Tony Ferguson being stripped of an interim belt, Colby Covington getting stripped of an interim belt, all these weird extenuating circumstances that are really devaluating these titles, devaluing. I don't know why I can't say that word. Devaluing these titles. And I think there is a long-term effect to that. We've talked about that on this show. I agree 100%, man. Like, I think at this point, there are certain fights that are big enough where you can just run with that as a pay-per-view headliner, especially in the case, I won't go into it again, but of Nate Diaz versus Dustin Poirier. Throw that 5 rounds, let that headline, put a nice undercard behind it. That's going to do just as well as any Amanda Nunes versus Valentina Shevchenko pay-per-view, or Colby Covington versus Rafael Dos Anjos. Like, all of these fights, none of these fights are exceptional draws compared to anything else. At some point, you don't need to force feed the title into the situation. I agree 100% with what Protein is saying here.
My man Protein and you are forgetting the most prominent non-titled main events on pay-per-view over the last few years. McGregor Diaz, 1 and 2, no titles on the line.
I literally started my thing with
I wasn't listening. So those 2 fights. So I don't think the UFC is necessarily trying. They are forcing interim fights, title fights into main events. They're certainly doing that. But I think they're doing that because they feel like they don't have the kind of people who can draw on pay-per-view without the title. And in many cases, they're not wrong about that. They've shown that if it's a McGregor versus a Diaz non-title fight, they can headline, and they can do, and literally the biggest pay-per-view by numbers in UFC history for those 2 fights, or at least 2 out of the 3, with UFC 100 being the other in the top 3. So they'll do it if there are stars and draws available to do that with. If not, that's what happens, I guess. I mean, it is kind of funny, though, because it does seem like they want to make if there's a title on the card, they want to make it the main event. UFC 200, the greatest example of that, right? The only title on the card was Nunes versus Tate for the women's bantamweight title. They made that the main event over Lesnar and Marc Hunt, over Dan Cormier and Anderson Silva. So it does seem like they want to put their titles at the forefront, which has not really done anything for those titles necessarily. They haven't actually gotten stronger. They're not really worth more because of that. It just seems like all right, well, we have a pay-per-view. What title is going to headline that instead of what big draw is going to headline that? But I think that's more of a product of where they're at as far as draws go and how many events they do. Because some of these people who used to draw on pay-per-view as co-main, as main, are now maybe on FS1 or on Big Fox. So and those are not usually title fights. So they're kind of saving the title fights for the pay-per-views, and some of those lesser stars who may have drawn in the past at a time when there weren't as many shows, when there weren't as many events per year, are now kind of being relegated to somewhere in the pay-per-view or headlining a Fox card or headlining an FS1 card. So I think it's a product of that. And again, and just to kind of make a long story, just kind of sum it up, TLDR, too long didn't read. Yeah, I would say, yeah, you have no idea what I'm talking about. It's okay. I think this is a product of where they feel like they're at as far as too many events, and they have to kind of fill those pay-per-view headliners with title fights, and there aren't enough big draws outside of the title picture to position them as main events for pay-per-view.
I just wonder at this point whether slapping a fake belt on a fight like that, whether it's going to be a #1 contender fight already, the slapping a fake belt on that, where it's so obvious at this point and it's so transparent for fans, like hardcore fans are not stupid. They understand why this is happening, what's going on. Does slapping a fake belt on it really make the fight that much more valuable? Because I don't feel like it does. And if anything, it just devalues that title. I don't know if the net sum gain is really there.
No, the interim title stuff is a different question, I think, and it doesn't make any sense. Like, I think Dos Santos versus Covington was a great example. Did that fight really need an interim title? It was a fight on the card. It still could have been the co-main event. It didn't need to have an interim title slapped on it for no reason, and it literally was for no reason because Covington is not even getting the next shot at Woodley. So what was the point of that? It was just an exercise in futility. But one good thing that I will say, and that's a tweak that they could make kind of in a different way, is that it's a 5-round fight.
Yeah.
When it's an interim title fight, it's a 5-round fight. And there are pros and cons to that. I like that fights are 5-round fights because it feels like more of a complete picture of who these fighters are in a 5-round fight. I feel like 3 rounds, especially at the highest level, a 3-round fight is very hard to come to the conclusion who is the better fighter. A 5-round fight, you got it. You find out who is better in most cases. 3 rounds is short. But I will say this, for a 5-round fight, you better pay those fighters more.
Well, that's the other thing.
Than you're paying them for a 3-round fight. That is my bottom line. As long as they're getting paid more for a longer fight. Look, that's just basic economics. If you're going to be working longer, you get paid more. So as long as that's the case, that's fine. You don't need the interim title though. You can just make that all right. It's going to be a title eliminator fight. It's going to be a 5-round fight. The UFC can do whatever they want. They make it up as they go along anyway. So why not just do that?
Yeah, I wish there was some way where they could be treated on a case-by-case basis where, okay, this is an obvious #1 contender fight. Let's make it 5 rounds, even if it's the co-main event. Then we don't have to then we can do away with these stupid belts that don't matter. And also, I agree, like at some point, one of the only upsides is that these dudes are getting paid championship money for these fake title fights. So I don't know. We'll see. It's a complex issue. And I mean, at this point, it doesn't feel like anything's changing. Like I don't feel like moving forward they're going to move away from this. So it is what it is. Moving on.
Getting paid more for interim title fights, then fine. I'm cool with that as long as they're getting paid more. But to say that it's not devaluing the belts is silly because if everyone has a freaking belt, even Daniel Cormier or even one of these long-term champions holding a belt means less than it did if it was just there used to be how many belts in the UFC? 5 titles? And everyone knew who they were. 6 titles? Everyone knew who the champions were. Now there's interim belts. There's, whatever.
Yeah. Although I would like somebody to do where maybe go to a UFC event and kind of take a poll of maybe 200 fans outside of the event, ask them to name the women's flyweight champion. See how many people could do it. Or even just any other like the champions that aren't like the huge names. I would like to see how many champions people could just name off the top of their head. I think it would surprise a lot of people how
you should do that. You should do that in Dallas, except the only caveat is that the women's flyweight champion is actually fighting on the card.
Yeah.
Let's see if they can name who it is if she's fighting on the card.
Hey, it's not a bad idea. Moving on.
There's your assignment for UFC 228, Shaun.
There you go, right? Next one is actually the Marc Raimondi special. This will be interesting for you. I have nothing to do with any of this. This comes from D. Piercy, who says, the A side is a stupid name. Sorry, guys, it's true. S&M is a much better name. You might as well call the show I Can't Think of a Better Name or I'm a Donkey. And I will add, I Can't Think of a Better Name Live Chat Podcast is kind of a good name. So thank you for that idea, D. Piercy. He also wants to know, what does Marc think of NXT signing Shirai?
Shirai.
I don't know what that means. Marc refuses to talk about her despite being a fan of Japanese wrestling. I don't have anything to do with this question. I have no idea what he's asking.
First of all, and I just want to address, we can't call it the S&M podcast.
I would love to call
it the S&M podcast.
I would love to call it the S&M podcast, but we cannot do that, unfortunately.
Look, you call it the S&M podcast and you wait for that first Photoshop of both of us in leather with chains, and you're going to change that name right quick, my friend. You have nothing for me. I would love to call it the S&M podcast, but for red tape reasons, we can't do it. So move past that. What do you think about this random wrestler that I don't know anything about? Okay, so and I appreciate the question, D. Piercy. I'm not ducking your question about Io Shirai. I'm just doing an MMA Fighting Live Chat, and I don't think anyone knows who she is, and I think that our viewer numbers are probably plummeting right now. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of Io Shirai. I think that she's a great addition to WWE. She's going to be in the Mae Young Classic. They taped most of those matches already. The finals will be in October. at the All Women's Evolution pay-per-view on Long Island. I'm hoping to go to that. She's great. She was the Ace of Stardom, which is like the Japanese. It's kind of like the New Japan for women. It's like the top Japanese women's pro wrestling league promotion, and she's amazing. I mean, listen, her matches can stand up to really any man's matches as long as she has the right opponent. I think she's a phenomenal athlete. She's so good. And if you, by the way, and I've kind of preached this already, if you watch some of these women's pro wrestling matches in Japan, it's called Joshi. They beat the hell out of each other, man. Like they're just kicking each other in the face hard, like legit. Shaun is yawning across from me here. I'm looking at this man yawning in my face. So D Piercy, you want to know why I haven't discussed this? It's because of this guy. You should blame Al-Shatti. It's not me. I love you, Yo Shirai.
I will say, literally every Tuesday when we're setting up this podcast, Marc is in me or texting, trying to figure out what we're gonna do, and he just is badgering me constantly to talk more wrestling. So if for those of you who want less wrestling talk, I'm like your savior right now. I'm the one holding this back. If it was up to Marc, we would do like half this podcast on wrestling. Maybe that's what y'all want. If that's what y'all want, if that's what you guys want, let us know. Then maybe we could switch to that. But for right now, I'm holding everything back.
If we get questions about wrestling, we'll answer the questions. But again, it's your show, so you dictate where the conversation goes.
Yeah.
If you want Shaun to talk about how big my head is, that's cool too. But I will not talk about the bachelor party in Nashville. That's where I draw the line.
Firm. I like it. So let's move on to the Twitter machines. That sound good?
Yeah, sure. Why not? There is one more question from Eduardo Bueno, our friend, about Travis Brown. Is he retired? I don't know if he's retired. I'm pretty sure he's still on the UFC roster, but he has been training down at the WWE Performance Center. So I would not be totally shocked to see him in a WWE ring at some point. Obviously, a very athletic guy, has great size, could possibly do some things in the pro wrestling world. So we'll see. So
you're telling me basically everyone in the Ronda Rousey orbit at this point is training for WWE?
I'm just waiting for Coach Edmund to get in there, baby. I want to see Coach Edmund in the WWE ring. If he's not in her corner at WrestleMania, I will be gravely disappointed.
They should. Hey, if they bring back managers, they should 100% bring in Coach Edmund for managers.
Look, if Ronda's going to turn heel, there is no better manager than Edmund Tarverdian. I think that would be phenomenal. I would be that. Take my money if that's the case.
All right, moving on to Twitter. First question today comes from our good friend Jamie Fretz, who's been asking this question last week too. We didn't get a chance to get to it. He asked it again. Said, listening to Dana White's interview on the Unfiltered podcast, he was insistent that Max Holloway was taking an extended period off, and said Max said no and wants to fight soon. So Dana said he's meeting and talking with Max that week. So he wants to know, is Max Holloway versus Bryan Ortega a possibility for UFC 230 at Madison Square Garden?
I mean, yeah, of course it's a possibility. Again, we don't know enough about Max Holloway's medical situation. He said a few weeks ago on the Helwani show on ESPN that he's confident he'll be back before the end of the year. November 3rd does seem like it's pretty close to now. So I understand people have some reservations, but we just don't know enough about his medical condition. Would a lot of us love to see him kind of take some time off, especially seeing how he looked at UFC 226 week before he pulled out of that fight? Of course, but if he's good to go, he's good to go. If he gets cleared, he's cleared and he can fight. So yeah, it's a possibility. But of course, there are people who are a little bit nervous after seeing how he looked in July. Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to reiterate too much, but I think if I was UFC, I would target December. I think that's a good amount of time for him. November seems a little soon. But hey, if he's ready to go, he's ready to go. So anything's a possibility right now.
Again, I like that as the Toronto main event, unless they can get George St. Pierre back for Toronto, which would be a no-brainer. But Holloway has fought in Toronto before. He's very popular there. He reps the Raptors. I think that would be a smart move if he's ready. Only if he's ready.
Oh, I like that by the way, that segue. Next question coming from Travis Ledbetter, who wants to know, should the UFC push for GSP, George St. Pierre, the man you just mentioned, versus Anderson Silva? He says it is a very winnable fight that would further boost GSP's legacy. It sets up GSP versus Conor in the event that he gets past Khabib for the biggest pay-per-view ever. Love the show. Thank you. Thank you for that, Travis. Very much appreciate it. Should the UFC push for GSP versus Anderson?
I mean, I've been saying that's the fight. I know that people disagree with me, and that's fine.
I disagree with you.
All right, well, we'll get to you. Just take it, relax over there. Go check on your fantasy football team. So I think that's a great fight.
Why are you so un-American? Why are you so un-American, Marc?
Anyway, so GSP Anderson Silva, I think that's the fight to make. I think that you don't want to throw GSP back into a title fight because we already know what he has done to the last 2 titles that he won. He kind of left them for dead, which is fine. I have no problem with that. But you can't throw him back into a title fight right away. The problem with this fight is it seems like George St. Pierre doesn't want it. He doesn't want anything to do with it. He wants a fight. He keeps saying he wants a fight that's going to further his legacy. And he doesn't think Anderson Silva, because of where he's at in his career, because I guess of the drug test failures, does that in any way. He doesn't feel like Silva helps his legacy, beating him, fighting him, whatever. So it seems like he doesn't want to do it. I don't know what would, though, at this point. I don't know what's available to George St. Pierre that would further his legacy. He said it's not Nate Diaz. He said it's not Nick Diaz. It's not Silva. He did say he wants to fight the winner of Khabib and McGregor. So I don't know if that'll happen. Push comes to shove, if that's out there and it can make a lot of money, of course it'll happen, but that's down the line. I mean, I think they're going to try to get him back for this year. There are main events to fill, MSG included. So I think they will try to lure him back, and maybe if there's enough money out there for him, they can get him to fight Silva on one of those cards. I would not say that's completely out of the question, but yeah, I mean, the UFC should try to do it. I think that I know that you're all about the Nate Diaz Poirier fight for the MSG headliner, but it would be kind of cool to see GSP versus Anderson Silva as that main event.
Sure, I can't argue against that. That would certainly be interesting to some degree, but man, that ship has sailed. To be honest, like I could not disagree with you more on this, just because, like, for a couple of reasons, right? One, what weight class is that going to be at? Is GSP going to fight at 185 again? Because he's not going to. If you look at him now, like, he looks smaller than ever. And all the struggles he had to get to 185, he is never going to do that again. That was a one-off for him. He is not going through that again. What is Anderson Silva going to come down to 70? Like, that's also not a possibility. A catch weight, maybe, but there is nothing in Anderson Silva's recent past, like, 3 years that says anything about this being, that shows anything towards this being a really interesting fight to me at this point, man. Like, I feel like his time is done, and if he wants to stay in the sport, that's great. I'm not going to tell you to retire, but he should be getting the Paulo Costas of the world and fed to these young dudes, man. He should just be getting the young lions, because that's how this sport works, man. It's the old eat the young, or the young eat the old, and it's cyclical. I think ultimately GSP, you said, he said, he wants a fight for his legacy. There's only one fight there. There's only one fight. It's Khabib. Well, it's a winner of Khabib or Conor. That's it. And ultimately, I know Dana White keeps saying that that's not going to happen. But if, say, Conor wins against Khabib, and then it's just this big giant thing, and it's just like, oh my God, Conor is so amazing, and everyone's just up in arms about how great and legacy building this was for Conor. You're telling me if GSP is sitting right there on the sidelines and the UFC is looking at either, a Nate Diaz, or I'm sorry, not a Nate Diaz, but like a Dustin Poirier or a Tony Ferguson, they won't go to GSP instead and try to get that extra cash? Because I think you're wrong. I think they would 100% do that. And how many times in the past has Dana White said something and then months later it ends up being untrue? I ultimately think if he fights again, it will be one of those two guys.
I mean, I think that's probably, again, of course they would do that fight, despite what Dana White has said, and despite logic, they would do that fight because it'll be a massive moneymaker. It could be the biggest fight in UFC history.
Also, yeah, I mean, sorry to cut you off, but I want to add, on the other side of that coin, say Khabib beats Conor and he does it thoroughly, like it's a very dominant performance. There is no bigger fight possible for the UFC at that point other than GSP versus Khabib. That would be fascinating. And as much as I want to see the Ferguson fight, as much as Nate Diaz is a star, it's not even close. Like, Nate Diaz has no rivalry with Khabib. The GSP, the legacy, the legend coming in to fight Khabib at this huge groundswell of Khabib's popularity after really defeating Conor in a thorough way, like, that would be huge.
That's not true, by the way. Diaz and Khabib do have a rivalry. They got into a fight at a WSOF show.
You're 100%. I was there. I was 100.
You were there. It was in Arizona.
Yeah. No, it was in Vegas. It was on the same night as Rousey versus Betch Correia. I was the only like main media person in Vegas for that when everyone else was in Brazil. It was the weirdest thing. I don't know how I forgot that.
How about this?
My point still stands though. My point still stands.
Here's my proposal. The UFC goes to GSP and they said, we will give you the shot, Khabib McGregor, the winner, lightweight title, if you beat Anderson Silva in the main event of Madison Square Garden. Book it.
I just don't see it.
It probably won't happen, but we're playing fantasy booker right now. So
yeah. Let's move on. Next question comes from Blake on Twitter, who's at Woolman7242. This is a damn good question, and this is one I've been wondering too. Is there any chance of MMA Fighting or the A side selling T-shirts? These MMA, and he adds that he said that before he saw these sweet shirts that me and you were both rocking. I really want us to sell these shirts because I love these shirts. They're like really comfy. But I don't know if that's going to happen. We should get some A-side stuff going though.
I'll sell you my shirt right now, Blake. How much?
Ooh.
How much? Off my back. How about that?
Game worn authentic jersey from Marc Raimondi.
I haven't even showered this morning, so it's got a nice little must to it.
Hey man, if y'all want us to make shirts, let us know and we'll make some shirts. That's no big deal.
Eventually, I think people like our MMA Fighting mugs too. I think that would be cool to sell, but give us some time.
Yep. You want to get the next one?
Yeah, why not? From Laz Nikolovsky from Twitter. Hi guys, with the McGregor versus Khabib fight being considered the biggest fight in MMA, what do you make of the rest of the card?
Is that it?
That's it, my friend.
All right, you kind of trailed out at the end there. I was waiting for a little bit more. I mean,
that's all you're getting.
It's okay card. I don't think it needs to be a good card at all by any means. I think that this is something that we already saw developing with UFC 202, where if you look at it in retrospect, it maybe looks good because we didn't know about Mike Perry and a couple of those guys up there. But at the time, I mean, that was Mike Perry's debut. We didn't know what we were getting into with that guy. A lot of UFC 202 was basically Conor Diaz and then a bunch of action fights underneath it. And it worked. I mean, it's the highest selling pay-per-view of all time. They know that they don't need to stack the deck for this one. So really, they just need the Black Beast and Volkov and a couple action fights in there. I think you got Felice Herrig versus Michelle Waterson in there too. I'm doing this all at the top of my head, so I'm not sure. But I mean, that's really all you need at that point. It's a boxing card. It's a one fight card where the rest you're getting is gravy because they know they're going to get you in the door for the main event.
I've always been interested in how the UFC books like these McGregor cards. Do they try to put some up-and-coming prospects on there? It seems that is the case. Cody Garbrandt was on UFC 202. They do kind of position some people they think are
Sean
down
O'Malley
for stardom.
Sean
O'Malley would be the guy on this card that could be that guy. Of course, Michelle Waterson also. The winner, Waterson Herrig, is, I mean, they're both obviously very marketable. Waterson's represented by WME. So she's someone that obviously they think is a star. And Derek Lewis is someone who could be fighting for the heavyweight title next year. I mean, either one of those guys, Lewis and Volkov, could be fighting for the heavyweight title. So there are, Sergio Pettis is a guy too, still a young guy, could be a star at flyweight. So it isn't the deepest card. It isn't a card filled with, ranked fighters. It doesn't have like another title fight. It doesn't have like another blockbuster like co-main event, but it doesn't need to. And I think that strategically they have people, in the card, kind of dotted around the card that are people who could possibly elevate themselves to casual fans who are watching for McGregor against Khabib.
Yeah, I agree with you. Let's move on. Let's go now to our good friend Tragic Bronson, who's giving us good ones every week. He asks, what skill set will be most important this weekend for the respective fighter to establish in order to win at UFC Lincoln? James Vick's range, or Justin Gaethje's leg kicks and possible takedowns? I'll jump right in with this one. I think it's Justin Gaethje's leg kicks are going to decide this fight, man. James Vick is basically a welterweight fighting at lightweight. He is so massive for that division. And that means he can't have, there's not a lot of meat in those legs, man. If Justin Gaethje can chop him down like he wants to, I mean, I talked to him, I think it was last week, and he basically said that his whole game plan for the Poirier and the Alvarez fights was just to take their legs home with him, to break those legs and take them home with him. And he feels like he was on his way to do that. I'm sure he's going to come into this one with the same strategy. Although I will say about the takedowns, he mentioned, and this was very interesting to me, for the first time in like 3 or 4 years, he's training wrestling regularly. He's brought back his old college coach, I think Ben Charrington, if I'm not mistaken, who was like a national champion, maybe 2006 at Boise State. And he's training with Ben twice a week, just pure wrestling. And it's the first time he's done that in a long time. Ben's going to be in his corner also for the James Vick fight on Saturday. So he threw in, maybe I'll throw a little couple or 1 or 2 double legs in there just to change things up to make Ben happy. So I think there's a chance we see a little bit of wrestling too.
Justin Gaethje's not going for takedowns. Get out of here. You got worked, son. You got worked.
We shall see, man. We shall see. This is a big one for him.
Justin Gaethje's not going for a takedown. He's not wrestling. That's not what he does. He's a crazy man.
I think the leg kicks are going to decide that fight ultimately.
I think so too. I had a conversation with Justin Gaethje last year, and it kind of stuck in my head, and it applies to this fight. James Vick he'd be like a classic 165er. He's a big man, but he feels like he's not big enough for 170, and he's been one of the people kind of who's been a big proponent, kind of like a Kevin Lee, of a 165-pound division. And I asked Justin Gaethje last year about 165, and he does not want that division. He does not want 165, and it's not because he doesn't think it would be good for fighters. He doesn't want 165 because he wants those giant guys to come down to 155, fight him, and have him just outwork, outpressure, and gas them out. That's what he said. That's what he said. He's like, I want those big guys to come down. It's like, I don't cut that much weight. Bring those big guys down. I will outwork them, and they will be gassed, and I will pound on them by the end of the fight. And that's why he likes it. So it made me think of this occasion because Vick is one of those big guys, and he has a hard weight cut. So that could be a little of what we see. Gaethje just putting the pressure on, and Vick has never really had a cardio issue. He's always been fine in that way, but there's no pressure quite like Justin Gaethje pressure. So that'll be something to watch also in that fight.
What a lunatic that guy is. Oh my God. I want the big guys to come here so I can tire them out. God,
that's what he said. That's what he said.
He is a crazy, crazy man.
You gotta love him though.
So we're running low on time. You want to get 1 or 2 more?
Yeah, there's like a homeboy put like a list. Marcel Pierre. Oh, another true or false. Are you down for another true or false?
We could try to really rapid fire it.
All right.
Are you able to be succinct? I don't know if you are.
It's not one of my my best attributes. I'll be honest. All right, ready? True or false? Going into the fight on paper, Ricky Bandejas was the better fighter. Of course, better than James Gallagher last week at Bellator. True or false?
He won the fight. True.
He said going into the fight. You cheated. You cheated.
You won the fight. That means going into the fight, he was the better fighter. True.
I would say false. But I will add one more thing, and I know I'm supposed to be succinct, but James Gallagher is a 145er. I want to see him fight at featherweight. I think 135 is. He was doing great at 145. Why drop down? Loses his first fight. He was killing at 145.
Yeah,
drops down once and get smoked. Stay at featherweight.
I agree with you 100% on that.
True or false? The backlash James Gallagher is receiving for his KO loss will be the same for MVP if he loses in similar fashion.
Oh Lord, I think false. I think it's gonna be way more. I think at this point people are so frustrated with MVP's level of competition. If he loses, especially in a similar way where he's taunting and then something like that happens, oh God, it's gonna be Ronda Rousey times 1,000. I feel like people are so ready to jump on him for this.
I will say false, and I think, and not for the reason you said. I think that Gallagher got a lot of heat because he's Conor McGregor's teammate, and people are just dying to crap on McGregor and his team. They're just frothing at the mouth to find something to get on McGregor about. So I would say false because MVP doesn't have that kind of profile that Gallagher and SPG Ireland has. So I'll say false.
Also, really quickly, I know we're supposed to be quick, but let me just add in this because it was something I was thinking about this whole week. Like people getting kind of up in arms about like the backlash against James Gallagher didn't really make sense to me because it's just like that's kind of the game, right, man? Like it's cool if you want to go and talk shit and be outrageous and like make a big spectacle of stuff. That's cool for me. I enjoy watching that. But if you go out there and you do that and you get knocked out, that's what happens. Like people are going to respond in kind to you. Like I was very surprised to see people like scolding the fan base for getting on James Gallagher. Like that's just kind of what happens historically in the fight game. If you talk a lot of shit and you get wrecked, people are going to talk shit to you.
Yeah, I mean, and it's like it's not a zero-sum game, right? It's like I don't mind James Gallagher, and I don't mind all of the crap talk, and I think he's right when he says no one will be talking about him or that fight if he didn't do that. That's 100% correct. And they also would not have had that reaction when he lost because of that. Yeah. So he drew attention to himself, which honestly, the name of the game. It's the name of the game in MMA. There's so many fights. There's so many promotions. There's so many events that if you're going to do something to stand out, you do it. But then you have to face the consequences of if you lose. And I think he's doing that just fine. I think he's taking it on the chin. I think he's taking it like a man. And I think it's great. But yeah, I think both those things can be correct. You can be fine with what he did. You can be fine with his trash talk, and then you could say, okay, I mean, you talk all that trash, you kind of get what's coming to you, and that's what makes it. I mean, that's the whole thing. And as long as you're able to deal with the fact that you're gonna get crapped on if you talk trash, that's fine.
Yeah.
Moving on. True or false? Khabib Nurmagomedov versus Conor McGregor will break the pay-per-view record.
True.
Well, I mean, false. It's not gonna break the McGregor, the Maypac record.
Oh, no. I guess I meant like, I assumed he meant UFC 202 record.
Okay. I think it will. I say true for UFC, but the all-time record, Pacquiao Mayweather, false.
No, it's not approaching that. That number's unreachable.
True or false? Dana White saying that he doesn't want George St. Pierre getting the winner of Khabib Conor is just a marketing tool.
False. I think he actually doesn't want that. I think he's sick of GSP. I don't know how to phrase this, but demonstrating his value and power in the sport in a way that very few fighters do and not bending to his whim. And he doesn't want GSP dictating terms and dropping another title. He's already dropped 2 titles already. But false. I don't think it's a marketing tool. I think he genuinely doesn't want that fight. I still think we're kind of probably going to get that fight though.
False. I everything that you said is correct. True or false? George St. Pierre versus the winner of Khabib Conor breaks the pay-per-view record set by Khabib Conor.
Oh gosh, that's a good question. I don't know. I think a lot of it depends on the winner of Khabib Conor. If it's Conor and it's an impressive, I think that's 100% true. I think that would go down as Conor's best victory win ever. Maybe not better than the Aldo in 13 seconds, but it would be right there. And I can't even imagine what the momentum would be like at that point. So I'm gonna give it a true, but maybe there's a condition there.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a push. Same thing. If it's GSP Conor coming off a win against Khabib Nurmagomedov, 2 million plus. If it's GSP Khabib, it'll still be massive, but it probably won't break the record.
Yeah.
True or false? Justin Gaethje is given his walking papers if defeated by James Vick.
False. That's the most entertaining man in this sport. He is not being given his walking papers.
False. No way. True or false? Jon Jones clears his issues with USADA and headlines MSG.
Little overlap here. We already talked about this, so I'm just going to say false. I don't think that's what's going to happen.
False, even though I'd kind of like to see it. True or false? The treatment WWE is giving Ronda Rousey is attracting other MMA stars like Cain Velasquez.
I maybe true. I mean, I don't know a lot about this. I don't follow WWE, but it seems as though she is very happy over there. She's very well received. Also, I mean, this is something me and you've talked about personally. It seems like the pro wrestling fan base is a lot more nice, I guess, generous with their love and their affection than MMA's fan base, where it's a very "what have you done for me lately" thing usually. So I could say true to this.
Yeah, I don't know if it's so much the treatment WWE is giving as the treatment that maybe the fans have given Rousey, because if you look at Rousey, I mean, MMA fans do not like Rousey. Just look at the comment section.
No way. No way.
It's brutal. It's brutal. And WWE fans have embraced her, and she gets great reactions. And I think when Velasquez went to go see her at the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view when she signed her contract back in, I think it was February, he was in the stands, and a few other people, Daniel Cormier. Cormier told me afterward that Kane just was blown away by the whole WWE production and the fans, and he was like hooked. And I guess that's kind of what led to him training at the WWE Performance Center a few weeks back. So we'll see where that goes. It may not go anywhere. I don't know. But, I mean, it does seem like there's a lot of crossover right now. And there's always been crossover. But right now, it's hotter than ever with Brock, Rousey. How about Matt Riddle?
Matt Riddle.
On WWE. He's going to be – he just officially signed. He was introduced over the weekend on NXT.
And I was even going to add, just really briefly, like even in that, there was I think it's Evolve. I don't know, whatever promotion Matt Riddle was with before this.
Evolve.
They released a little video where he was very emotional talking about his journey from MMA to now pro wrestling. And he said the same thing where it's just like in MMA, he would go out, get fight of the night, cut weight, kill his body to do all this stuff. And then he would just get shit on by a very vocal part of the fan base telling him he didn't know how to fight. Whereas when he's going across the world and wrestling all these different places, everyone loves him and everyone's super nice to him. So I think that's just a very real dynamic there with the differences between the fan bases.
Yeah, I would encourage anyone to go over to MMA Junkie and read Ben Folks' piece about Matt Riddle from a few months ago about where he compares. I think wrestling fans are like fans going to see Shakespeare, whereas like MMA fans are going to see like Christians versus the Lions, something like the Coliseum, something along those lines. But go check out that article by Ben. All right, a couple more. True or false? Nate Diaz, Conor McGregor 3 never happens.
False. It's happening.
False. It'll happen. No matter what. They're both still young enough. It'll happen eventually.
Yeah.
Last one. True or false? Anderson Silva fights for another title before he retires.
False. I just don't see him being able to, because to get there, he would have to win at least 1 or 2 fights. I just don't see there's a path there for him when there's already a lot going on in that division.
I would say false, but I want to preface my answer with it doesn't have to be a UFC title, right? He doesn't say UFC title.
Ooh, that's interesting. I don't feel like they would let him go, man. He's the legend of the UFC, basically. He is the one guy.
I mean, Lyoto Machida, his boy, already went to Bellator.
There's a big difference between Anderson Silva and Lyoto Machida, though.
Certainly. But you never know. It's a weird world out there.
True. So we're about running out of time. That probably wraps up the question portion of this. Let's go ahead and end this with a little segment we like to call the promo, where we talk a little bit something about something's on our mind this week. You want to go first, Mark? Or you want me to go first?
You should go first, Shaun.
All right, I'll go first. So, Mark, if you're an MMA fan out there in this wonderful world of ours, there is a good chance that you were scrolling through your Twitter timeline yesterday and ran across a little post by UFC featherweight, top 27's own Bryce Mitchell. In case you didn't see this, the first sentence of this post reads as follows. So I was gonna train today, but I ripped my nutsack in half. As far as first sentences go, that's a doozy. Mr. Mitchell, or Thug Nasty as the kids call him, then proceeded to go into great detail about a terrible, awful, historically bad drilling accident he had wherein his kibbles and bits got tangled up with a power drill. Mind you, this entire post and Mr. Mitchell's entire demeanor on Twitter afterwards is full of ha-has and LOLs like this isn't the worst thing that's ever happened in the history of the world. This crazy son of a bitch then posts a photo of his blue striped boxers, which, without going into much detail, aren't very blue anymore. In fact, they're quite red. They are quite red. And Thug Nasty is most upset that he ruined, as he put it, a perfectly good pair of boxers. 2 things. 1, holy shit. I don't know what it is about the martial arts of the mixed variety that invites this sort of injury that I literally don't see happen to any athlete ever in any other sport. Because back in March, I was quite sure that UFC lightweight Devin Powell had secured the award for worst injury to the family jewels with his ruptured testicle. But nope, Bryce Mitchell has to go and top him only a few months later. Second, I was gonna come on here today and talk about how it would be a crime against humanity if Mr. Mitchell didn't get some kind of underwear deal or cup sponsorship or something out of this whole ordeal. But then the magic of Twitter happened again. And within a few hours, not only was he hit up by an underwear brand, but also a cup brand. Both MeUndies and Diamond MMA reaching out to this poor man in his time of need, just in a matter of hours, offering to help him in his recovery. So this one goes out to you, MeUndies, and to you, Diamond MMA. Good on you for helping out our fellow man in his time of need. And also an extra special shout out to Bryce Mitchell, you tough bastard, you crazy son of a bitch. I don't know how you handled this whole situation with a sense of humor, but I am pretty sure you're the toughest man in the history of humanity. So good luck in your recovery, man. Hope we see you back soon.
I have two takeaways from what you just said. One, I wish that I could write a lead as effective as the one that Bryce Mitchell wrote in his post. I've never written anything quite as eye-catching as that. Two, all it takes for an MMA fighter to get some good sponsors is to mangle their nether regions. That's all it takes.
I ripped my nutsack in half.
In this Reebok era, that's all it takes.
I was going to train, but I ripped my nutsack in half.
I don't know if I can. I gotta tap out here. I don't even think I can go further. Like that's permeated my brain. I saw that I was sitting down with lunch. I was ready to, I opened my laptop up, saw Twitter, and I saw a pair of bloody boxers as the first thing when I opened Twitter. And I got my sandwich, and that was it. Threw the sandwich away. No, I'm just kidding. Of course, I ate that shit. So here I have a proposal. I have a proposal, Shaun, for you, for everyone out there. Brock Lesnar wrestled on Sunday night, of course, at SummerSlam, WWE. He lost his WWE Universal title to Roman Reigns. Some of you know that. Some of you will be tuning out as you hear that I'm talking about this. But I have a proposal. My proposal is this. Brock Lesnar is back in the USADA testing pool. He's being tested by USADA. He is preparing for his return to the UFC. And it seems that it's going to be in a heavyweight title fight against Daniel Cormier. That will likely be sometime in the beginning of next year, January 2019, when Lesnar, when his suspension is fully done and when he can get back and fight officially in the octagon. It'll probably be for a heavyweight title fight. My proposition is this, Shaun. I believe that Daniel Cormier and Brock Lesnar need to promote this fight in two ways, on UFC television and on WWE television. I believe that it is a missed opportunity if Daniel Cormier does not go on WWE Raw on a Monday night and have his UFC heavyweight title on his shoulder and have a segment with Brock Lesnar. I believe that is a missed opportunity. I believe it could be good for both the UFC and WWE. I believe that there has never been a stronger relationship between WWE and the UFC. Ronda Rousey on Sunday became the first woman to win a UFC title and a WWE title. And I think that they could do a UFC heavyweight title fight between Lesnar and Cormier sometime earlier in the year. Cormier will retire in March, and then they can have a match at WrestleMania. Co-promote, baby. WWE, UFC. I think that it could be great for both, and it could end up being, if they were to do it that way, it could end up being a massive, massive pay-per-view. And I honestly think that if Cormier is not somehow involved in some kind of WWE shenanigans, it doesn't have to be too over the top. It's got to be him talking. He's great. He's a great promo. He's a huge WWE fan. You saw him tweet. He was tweeting like a giddy kid on Sunday night during SummerSlam about Rousey, about Brock Lesnar losing the belt. He's saying he's going to get in Brock Lesnar's ass. Not quite sure what that means, but my point stands. WWE, UFC work together, put on a great co-promotion, Lesnar and DC, and then do it again in April at MetLife Stadium, WrestleMania. I think it would be fantastic.
That does nothing for me. All of that does nothing for me.
It would be so fun. Are you kidding me?
Let me add though. I didn't watch any of this, the SummerSlam. I will say though, I saw the pictures of Brock Lesnar in the USADA testing pool. Kind of looks a little different.
What are you trying to say? What are you trying to say, Shaun?
I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying, kind of looks a little different already. What's this man gonna?
Are you playing coy?
What's this man gonna look like in January? That's all I want to know.
I think he'll look fine. Look, I think he's gonna get back into the gym and start doing some MMA training again. Get into a training camp. Gonna look fantastic. He's a massive human being.
True that.
What a physique.
True that. It's always good when we can end this show talking about another man's physique. That seems fitting.
Well, you were marking out over Jon Jones's physique earlier, so might as well throw Lesnar in there.
That's what I'm saying. Got to keep it consistent, right? So, hey, that about wraps up the time we have today. Thank you guys so much again for joining us on the A-Side Live Chat podcast. It's always fun. We appreciate all your questions. Back again next week, same time, same place. Like I said, a replay of this podcast will be up immediately following the show on YouTube and probably within a couple hours on SoundCloud. And again, I'll reiterate, iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, all those things are coming probably in the next couple weeks for us. So stay tuned for that. In the meantime, for Marc Raimondi. Oh, he's putting on the shades. You can't see it. Talk real quick so you can see how cool this guy looks.
You can't see me, Shaun.
Look at that. He's the coolest man I know. For Marc Raimondi, I am Shaun Al-Shatti. This has been the A-Side Live Chat podcast. Thank you so much. Have a good week and enjoy the fights, y'all.